And welcome everyone into Redacted on this Monday, December 1st, 2025. I'm Clayton Morris. Natalie is off today. She is dealing with our sick daughter who has influenza A, so it's kind of an all hands on deck situation, as you know. If you've got many kids like we do, this is what you're dealing with on a regular basis. But hey, coming up on the show today, by the way, I should say, I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. The news cycle didn't seem to crawl to a halt, though, over the Thanksgiving holiday. But we are ramping up for war with Venezuela. Now that we are past the Thanksgiving holiday, a lot of things happening in real time. President Trump about to meet with his national security team, preparing for war. What will that look like? We're going to talk about that with Colonel Daniel Davis, who's going to be joining us in a moment. The next steps for that land invasion or naval invasion, whatever it's going to be. Airspace over Venezuela is now closed, so we will go there and talk with the colonel on that. We're also going to look at multiple angles on all of this, the sort of extrajudicial killings of these narco boats. We're told that these are bringing, of course, drugs to the United States. Quite a few waves were made over the past couple of days after a bombshell report hit the Washington Post about the targeting of these particular drug boats and what those exactly look like. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth then stepping in, calling for everyone to be killed. Well, was this a war crime? Now it seems the White House is saying Admiral Bradley was responsible for it, not Pete Hegseth. Is he just the fall guy in this? We'll talk about that. And we're going to go boots on the ground to Venezuela. What does the Venezuelan side of this look like now? What are they calling for? It seems like they're calling for peace. Do Venezuelans want actual war with the United States? A reporter who's in Venezuela, been covering this story among the Venezuelan people. We're going to hear from that side of the story because in the United States, of course, you only hear from the administration and you only hear from the people at the Pentagon and the people on Fox News. So we're going to do that. Plus the United Kingdom. Now, if you've seen, they're rolling out new AI drones because it's turning into a mass surveillance state in the United Kingdom. Now they want to roll out a whole army of drones that will monitor your behavior just to make sure you're complying with the law. And if you're showing what they call antisocial behavior, that will trigger a red flag. So what is antisocial behavior? Like if you just don't like hanging out with people, these drones will know that. They'll notify the authorities. The UK is completely lost. So we're going to be covering all of that and more on the show today. Welcome in, everyone. Merry Christmas season to all of you. Did you guys have a good Thanksgiving holiday? I know most of the team was like sick. I know, David, you were like sick as a dog.
Yeah, I'm feeling better now. So
that's good. That's good. I know the influenza A is running around like crazy. Philip, you had a good holiday as well?
I did, yeah. I avoided getting sick, and I basically just played video games and pool the entire time. So that's what I did.
By the way, people should know that Philip is like a pool master, by the way, like literally competes in like big pool tournaments and so forth. So, yes, excellent pool player. Don't ever play him and he'll pretend like he doesn't know how to play and then he'll just steal all your money.
Yeah, I'm a notorious shark.
Well, let's talk about notorious sharks. Let's talk about what's happening right now as we approach war with Venezuela. It looks like it is imminent. President Trump holding a meeting in a few hours to iron out the next military moves against Venezuela. This comes as President Trump over the weekend, of course, closed the airspace over Venezuela, tweeted or posted on Truth Social. He said, hey, all you people watch out. No one's allowed to fly over Venezuela anymore. And you can see what it looks like right now. No one's allowed to fly. By the way, a little side note there, all of those repatriation flights where you're getting rid of like illegal immigrants in the United States, because Nicolas Maduro was open to those flights coming in from the United States, getting illegal immigrants out of the United States into Venezuela. Those flights are also stopping. So they'll, I guess, just remain here. Okay, so that sort of violates everything that Trump ran on, but okay. So that's going to happen. Meanwhile, right now, Venezuelans say that these large bombers have also entered their airspace, strategic bombers, the USB-52H. Venezuela says this is a violation of their sovereignty, coming across their borders without authorization, flying over right now. So no one else can fly there, but these bombers can fly there right now. And a few hours ago, according to the Miami Herald, President Trump gave Maduro basically a final ultimatum. Leave now. You can take your wife with you. You can take your son with you, but you have to get out. We'll offer you safe passage. It seems like he's turned that offer down. He doesn't plan to go anywhere. He did offer apparently to the Trump administration for the opposition to take over the government, but that he and his inner circle would still have control of the military. Not exactly sure how all of that would work. But we got some sense of exactly why this is happening and why this is unfolding in the way it is. And we're going to get to all of that and more. But I want to bring in Colonel Dan Davis, host of the Deep Dive with Colonel Davis. Always great to have you here on the show, Colonel. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thanks for being here.
We did. Thanks for asking, Clayton.
Great to have you here. So just from a military perspective, Colonel, so much to unpack here, and I really want to spend the bulk of the show because I think this is the biggest story right now, and I really want to deep dive this separate from the normal propaganda and like the CNN, Fox News sort of talking points about all of this, and cut through all of it. Before we get into all of that, though, the airspace question from a military, a strategic military perspective, when he closes down the airspace, what does that signal to you as a colonel? Well, what do you think is coming next?
Yeah, well, it signals that he's just basically just clearing the decks and saying, all right, well, whenever I decide to take action, I want to make sure that there's no possibility for civilians to be hit or any kind of collateral damage. And then, of course, it's also simultaneously a very strong message to Maduro himself to say, hey, no, I am deadly serious about this. We've already had several iterations of B-2 bomber overflights, practice runs, et cetera. So it seems to be building and ramping up. And so I'm sure that's the primary purpose of this was, unfortunately, I think probably the protecting civilians is a secondary issue, but primarily I think it's to communicate the seriousness of this, that President Trump is saying basically leave, or pretty soon it's going to not be a dry run, but a hot run. And I think that's probably what was intended, and we'll see what happens.
So what do you think? What do you think is happening right now at the Pentagon? We know that President Trump, in just a few short hours, is going to be meeting with his team to make the next steps here. It seems like all of this is coming to a head. Could be imminent. I mean, I don't use that word lightly. It seems like it's imminent. What do you sense?
Yeah, that's exactly my feel. I mean, my sincere hope is that this will just be much ado about nothing, and that we'll take a lot of actions and a lot of words, and that no violence follows. I mean, that's what I hope. But as we always said in the military, hope is not a method. So I doubt, or my gut tells me that it's not going to be avoided. And you ask about what the Pentagon was doing. I mean, they're doing what they always do, is preparing for action. And if the president says that this is something he's considering, then what we can expect based on all the things that have happened, all the firepower that's been moved into the region over a period of time, is that they have been conducting rehearsals. They've been saying, all right, here's what we're going to do. They've been planning it, probably doing computer simulations, just over and over rehearsing what the different parts would be, war gaming, what happens if this doesn't work right, what if that happens instead, what are the different reactions that the other side could do, and then what would be our counteractions. And then they probably just continue to war game that out, and if they need to change any assets or resources, they'll get that. That's what I expect the military to be doing. But that's just the operational aspect. The bigger questions to me is, where are you going with this? What is the attainable military objective? And we can't fail to also ask the legality questions. How is this in conjunction with the United States Constitution, with the 1973 War Powers Act? You cannot possibly rationally make the argument that we have been attacked, which the administration has tried to do. We have been attacked by these narco-terrorists because we designated that name on them. Somehow that makes it okay to just kill them whenever we feel like it. There's no truth to it. It's paper thin, but yet that appears to be what we've been doing. I mean, I know you're going to talk about the boat strikes, et cetera, separately, but they are definitely connected with this. And the same kind of mentality that went into that seems to be getting ready to go into a much larger strike that there's even less justification for. And what are you going to do if it goes sideways? What are you going to do if it's not a nice, clean, easy operation like apparently Lindsey Graham and several of the other folks who are for this are saying it's going to be a layup. Lindsey Graham said a couple of weeks ago. It's not, and it could go disastrously wrong. What are you going to do then? This could get us sucked into something that we're just not prepared for.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to unpack there, and I want to go through each of these points that you just brought up. They're all great. But on the last point, the Lindsey Graham point, that this is going to be a cakewalk, a no-brainer, easy as pie, you've warned for years that Washington underestimates the cost, the complexity, the sacrifice, the duration of these military interventions, whether it's Afghanistan or Iraq or whatever it is. Do we want to administer Venezuela? Like, do we want to be in control of Venezuela? And I don't know that they have any kind of an exit strategy for this.
We barely have an entrance strategy. I don't see any evidence that there's an exit strategy, because for that to even exist, you have to know what you want to accomplish and what the ultimate objective is. What do you want the end state to look like? I think other than Maduro gone, I don't think there is one. I mean, there certainly hadn't been anything communicated. And so what that means is that they'll be doing it on the fly, like so many of these other missions that you just referenced here a second ago, that just is anguishing to me. Because how many times do we have to relearn the same lesson? That if you don't have an objective, if you don't know where you want to end up before you take step one, then you're going to end up just drifting around, and you're going to end up killing a lot of people on the ground. Almost certainly you're going to get some Americans killed for no value to our country. And it's certainly, at the best case, going to cost a lot of money. And I don't see it really turning out in any kind of positive thing for the United States. And by the way, you also have to keep in mind what this looks like to our reputation throughout the world, especially in our hemisphere. This makes us look like the thugs, the bullies. I hate to use those terms with my country, but that's what it makes us look like, that we used to condemn when we even talked about what China might do, et cetera, what the Russians might do. We are about to do something that has no justification, and everybody in the region knows this is a pure power play, that President Trump just doesn't like Maduro, doesn't want him in power, is unwilling to take the many deals that Maduro has allegedly offered, which could have forestalled violence. It just looks like President Trump wants to get into a war, and as you've said several times on your show, he campaigned on not doing that. And now it looks like we're literally on the edge of doing it. And again, I just hope that somebody on his inner circle says, Mr. President, don't do this.
Well, you bring up a couple of great points. And of course, back in 2024, President Trump was pretty forthright in his discussions about Venezuela. This video has now kind of gone viral over the past 24 hours, where the president is saying, during my first term, this shouldn't have happened. We're now buying oil from a narco-terrorist, a dictator. And if I were president, and what we were trying to do was, basically have regime change where we would get this oil for free. And so it seems like that's the plan. As someone in our chat room just said, the plan is liberate the oil. And Representative Maria Salazar this morning on Fox and Friends basically let the cat out of the bag, confirming this, plan is all for oil. Watch.
This is not going to be hard. 80% of the Venezuelans voted for the opposition. You have 8 million Venezuelans in exile. We're talking about the largest reserves of oil in the world that will be doing business with the American oil companies. And that is something that I have made very sure that they understand. American companies in Venezuela for the next 100 years.
All right. So that's the plan. Yeah, you heard it here. She says you heard it right here. Like, that's what's going to happen. It's imminent. This is coming. This is about to happen. A United States member of Congress letting the cat out of the bag that this is all about oil, just like it was about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Now it's about narco boats in Venezuela. It's not about that. It's about the oil in both counts, right?
Where is the justification for that? And I'm frankly sick and tired of hearing all this statement about, Maduro was not legally elected. Well, okay, maybe they are, maybe they wasn't. What does that matter to you? What does it matter to us? We don't have the authority. No one said, okay, America, you get to patrol the world, and if somebody doesn't get elected according to your standards, you can kill them. You can drive them out. There is no such authority, of course. That's something for the Venezuelan people to figure out. If 80% of them genuinely voted for the opposition and Maduro kept power, that's something they have to solve inside their borders within their country. It is not ours to do, and to insert ourselves into this anyway means that there is no rule of law, Clayton. There's no rule of law if we take this, because then it's just power politics and power dissemination that we do whatever the hell we want to do, and you either get out of the way or you get killed. I'm sorry to be that firm about it, but that's what it will be if we take this action. There is no legal or moral justification for this.
Wait, so in 2020, when we had the problems we had in our election, Dominion voting machines and all of that, like Venezuela should have been involved in our elections, right? I mean, they should have been.
If only they had thought about that in time. You're right. They could have solved that problem.
And when they installed Kamala Harris.
Right. I mean, where was Venezuela? Like, they have a right to be meddling in our elections. Like, what? This is not what the American people signed up for. I mean, militarily, though, Colonel, what do you think as the Pentagon is ramping up, they're planning all of this from a land invasion perspective? I mean, we've heard, like, what a disaster that's going to be. And we're hearing reports on the Venezuelan side. What they're preparing for is a guerrilla style scattering across the country approach to try and thwart our invasion here. What do you make of that strategy? What are you hearing on that side of things? And how disastrous would it be?
If they have paid any attention at all to Afghanistan over our disastrous 20 years, they'll see that we came in there and after just a few months, literally destroyed and annihilated the Taliban government and military, destroyed them utterly. But we didn't kill every individual because they did. They scattered throughout the mountains and stuff. And so over time, they were able to get together in these bands, and then they started this guerrilla warfare, which, of course, they had done with the Mujahideen under the Soviet Union, et cetera, which we helped provide for. And if these guys have paid any attention at all, and if anybody has looked at the terrain inside Venezuela, it is absolutely premium territory to conduct that kind of an operation. And you were just begging yourself to get into another insurgency that you can't win. And for the same reasons we couldn't win the one in Afghanistan. And we've got such a small amount of troops in the meantime. Let me touch on this for a second. There's a lot of firepower, a lot of jets with the Gerald R. Ford and several missile carriers, destroyers. You can blow up a lot of stuff. You can kill a lot of people, but there's a really small, I think less than 10,000 total troops, and I think a lot fewer of that of Marines that can actually do anything on the ground. You can seize a location and, maybe you can do a snatch and grab or something like that if you find Maduro, and I can't imagine he would be lightly defended. But you can't invade anything. All you can do is blow a bunch of stuff up. And then what are you going to do, Clayton? What are you going to do if Maduro doesn't get killed or he doesn't give up and he stays hidden somewhere and he goes into the mountains to God knows where and runs this? Now what are you going to do? You've put the credibility and the United States on the line. You've killed a lot of people already, and there is no achievable military objective. This could go wrong so many ways, and I hope somebody at the highest levels of our government are telling President Trump this has almost no chance to work out to our advantage, and 100 different ways it could go bad.
Well, you've got these neocons surrounding him. You've got the likes of Senator Lindsey Graham, who plays golf with President Trump, telling him it's going to be a cakewalk. Warmongers that are surrounding the president. And then you have officials that came out this morning saying it's not going to stop with Venezuela. It will stop. We'll go to Colombia and Cuba next. So what the hell are we doing?
When I heard that about Colombia, I was just almost sick because, listen, this is not Panama. Like somebody said, well, this will be like Panama or with Noriega, et cetera, from the Bush and the Reagan administration. No, it's not. This is not Panama. And now you're talking about expanding into Colombia? I mean, what the hell is wrong with these people? Have they not paid any attention to what has happened with these guerrilla wars, especially in Colombia, and how that's fought? They have experience of doing that. Now, you want to turn those against Americans? You want to put 50, 60, 100,000 American troops to try and do another no-win situation? And why do you want to add Cuba into that? Why is that even in the conversation? I've been to Cuba, and I went on a religious trip once to try to help the people, and they are so poor. They represent a threat to no one. Why do we even talk about that? That's part, whether it's neocon or somebody else, Clayton, this is part of a sickness that I think has to be purged, or they're going to take us all into a place that's going to be killing a lot of people who were uniformed like I did, and that just angers me and grieves me.
Well, I mean, forget the Cubans for a second. The Venezuelans pose no threat to us. This whole argument, this total bullshit argument that they're, narco terrorists are coming to the United States. Give me a break. That's, as Senator Rand Paul pointed out, that's a total lie, and they're using it as a justification to push us to manufacture consent for war. So none of these people,
paper thin.
I mean, how many Americans watching right now wake up in the morning like, man, the Venezuelans are coming? No.
Yeah. Or how many family members of our service members wake up and go, golly, if my service member, if my husband, if my father, if my son has to sacrifice his life to die in some mountain in Venezuela, that's good because, wait, there's no because. No, not one of them is going to be. They would be anguish beyond compare if you're going to sit them in there to die for nothing, much less the Venezuelans. I think you said you're going to talk to somebody there. I'll be real eager to watch that. Why should one Venezuelan die? Because I don't know, have this obsession with getting Maduro out or so. It's immoral, flat out.
100%. And then we're going to talk about the legal implications of this in a moment with Daniel McAdams from the Ron Paul Institute to dive more deeply into that on the legal side of things. Because, again, the legal justification now is, they've attacked the United States. Really? Where have they attacked the United States? Hey, seal our border and yes, get rid of illegal immigrants in the United States. Absolutely. They're criminals in the United States. But I will admit, and I think some of the propaganda did work a little bit. Certainly it worked on me a little bit. But I woke up and I now see the lies they were spinning here on this whole thing, which was Tren de Aragua is right around the corner from you. It's the greatest threat. No one ever heard of Tren de Aragua before. Now suddenly it's the largest. No. What about the Mexican drug cartels? What about... Right. But no, it's Tren de Aragua is the greatest threat to the United States. I see what they did. We're not stupid. Colonel Davis, always great to see you. Thrilled that you had a great Thanksgiving. Thank you for this perspective. We're going to be watching this closely because, as you point out, it does look like this is imminent. Thank you, as always, for your analysis. We really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure to be here, Clayton. See you next time.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you so much, Colonel. All right, coming up, yes, we are going to talk about the legal side of all of this, and we're going to also go to Venezuela and talk about what the Venezuelan side of this, like what do they think about this? So we're going to cover all aspects of this today. The American media will not. They'll only parrot the talking points from the Pentagon. Venezuela's the greatest threat to the United States. Okay, sure it is. We're going to talk about these war crimes that have been thrown around. We're going to talk about that, all of that in a second. But first, you guys already know about the bear skin hoodie, right? Well, if you've been waiting to get one yourself, now is the time. It's officially hoodie season. Cold mornings, windy days, surprise snow. It has been like 13 degrees here in the Rocky Mountains. Got a big cold snap. And every morning I take the dog for a walk. I'm wearing my bearskin hoodie. Absolutely love it. Absolutely fantastic. The best part is we got some snow. This thing, first of all, it's got really strong fleece, right? This thing is built with 340 GSM bearskin fleece, 10 pockets, rugged, athletic. It looks fantastic. Plus, if it starts pouring, you can zip on your heavy storm rain jacket, instantly level up for waterproof protection right over top of it. You'll get free U.S. shipping from the U.S. warehouse, and it's gear that will last you season after season. My son has one. He wears it all the time. He's outside riding his bikes, dirt bikes with his friends up in the mountains, and he wears the bearskin hoodie. He's got his own. He's got a nice blue one, like a navy blue one that he wears all the time. So right here is what you need to do to get 60% off. Perfect for the holidays. Just text the word redacted to 36912. Again, that's redacted to 36912. And they'll text you a link so you can lock in your 60% off before the sale disappears. Don't wait till the weather gets really bad. Grab a bearskin while this Cyber Monday, Black Friday deal is still live right now. Oh, and one more thing. When you support Bearskin, you're also supporting the Fallen Outdoors and the Hope for the Warriors Veterans Program. So you're not just buying great gear, you're backing a cause that matters. Grab your Bearskin while this Black Friday deal is still live. I love how Black Friday now spills into Cyber Monday. Text the word redacted to 36912 and you'll be taken care of. Well, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth doubling down on those attacks on those Venezuelan shipping boats, those fishing boats, or whatever they're calling them, narco boats, right? Narco terrorism boats. That's the word. And this morning or last night, Pete Hegseth tweeted this: for your Christmas wish list, this AI generated Franklin targets narco terrorists. I think, by the way, isn't Franklin like a Canadian turtle? I think it's like a Canadian kids lineup. So that's funny, right? So many people ratioed him in the comments saying this is not funny at all. This is what we're doing now with no justification and no proof at all that we are being attacked as a result of these boats. Well, the Washington Post published this piece. Hegseth order on first Caribbean boat strike, officials say, kill them all. As two men clung to a stricken, burning ship targeted by Navy SEAL Team 6, the Joint Special Operations Commander followed the Defense Secretary's order to leave no survivors. So that first strike took out the boat, and then as these survivors are swimming away, another strike killed those individuals swimming away. According to the Washington Post, Secretary of Defense Hegseth gave the verbal order to kill anyone who survives a first strike.
Yeah, can't have anybody to talk.
Yeah, can't have anybody at all to talk because we need to make sure that there's no voices, right? We got to take them all out. So President Trump was asked about this on Air Force One, and his response was weird because at first he said he didn't know anything about it, but then he went on to say basically he knew all about it. I don't know. Here was President Trump's response to this. Watch.
Said he did not want them. He didn't even know what people were talking about. So we'll look into it. But no, I wouldn't have wanted that. The second strike. The first strike was very lethal. It was fine. And if there were two people around, but Pete said that didn't happen. Does that mean I have great confidence? He's saying there's no second strike. I don't know. I'm going to find out about it. But Pete said he did not order the death of those two men.
Do you have any concerns about how those boat strikes have been carried out at all?
Very little, because you can see the boats, you can see the drugs in the boats, and each boat is responsible for killing 25,000 Americans. So, and they're doing an amazing job. And you know we're getting.
So, I don't know anything about it, but I know everything about it. Pete said he didn't authorize the killing of those individuals. Okay. Well, Karen Levitt was asked about it today, so was refuting the Secretary of War his position on this? Like, what's the truth in all of this story? It seems like they're throwing Admiral Bradley under the boat, so to speak. Listen to her response.
So that's why you've seen a drastic difference in this administration's policy with respect to the last, and it's one of the many reasons the American public reelected this president and support this Secretary of War in conducting these strikes.
So to be clear, to clarify, Admiral Bradley was the one who gave that order for a second strike.
And he was well within his authority to do so.
And a separate question, the president several days ago said it was his intention to...
So he gave the order for that second strike. Okay. Let's bring in Daniel McAdams now, from the Ron Paul Institute and host of the Liberty Report. Great to see you, sir. Welcome back to the show, as always.
No, thanks for having me back. It's always great to join you guys.
So from a libertarian perspective, a legal perspective, what authority does Secretary of War, the President of the United States, have to carry out these extrajudicial killings of these narco boats off the coast of Venezuela? Like, just from a legal perspective, what authority do you think they have?
Well, they're non-combatants, even if they were carrying drugs, and we've seen no proof they are carrying drugs. People have commented it's awfully strange to see 10 or 11 guys on a boat taking up so much space that it could be used taking up with drugs. But even if they were, they're not combatants according to the laws of war. And it's ironic because the same people who rightly criticize President Obama for his drone strikes, his drone strike Tuesdays, who am I going to take out this week, are silent on this or encouraging it. And in fact, Clayton, the thing is that this double strike is very, very serious, and it looks like an admission of war crimes. That's probably why poor old Admiral Bradley is now on the hook for the whole thing, even though Hegseth was taking a lot of credit for it. The idea of shooting at a shipwreck is considered so egregious that it actually is in the Law of War Manual of the Department of Defense. It's section 18.3.2.1, where it specifically points out, for example, orders to fire upon the shipwrecked would be clearly illegal. That's in the Pentagon's own manual. So it's a textbook case, according to their own rules, of doing something completely egregious and illegal. They have got some serious problems on their hands right now.
I'm pulling this right up here. This is the Department of Defense Law of War Manual. The requirement to refuse or to comply with orders to commit law or war violations applies to orders to perform conduct that is clearly illegal, or orders that subordinate knows in fact are illegal. For example, orders to fire upon the shipwrecked would be clearly illegal. I mean, you couldn't get more specific than that. Shipwrecked. Do not fire. You've blown up their ship. Now they're shipwrecked. This is a war crime to then fire on those individuals. So whoever ordered it, it's a war crime. And I guess the Department of War, the Defense Law, War Manual, specifically saying it is incumbent upon these sailors to say no, that would be a war crime, sir. We cannot, under the Department of Defense Law War Manual that I signed as a cadet or whatever, I'm not allowed to carry this out. This is a war crime, sir. I'm sorry, I won't do that. Because if it would go to a court-martial, it wouldn't be the sailor that gets in trouble. It would be the commander, no?
It would be. And I mean, and according to Nuremberg, the Geneva Conventions, even if you want to go beyond the Law of War Manual, I mean, there's a reason these things are in place. And it's not just to protect foreigners, it's also to protect Americans who may find themselves in similar situations. So I think a lot of this tempest in a teapot over the so-called seditious six, of course, the Democrats are trying to make political points on this. They frankly don't give a damn about the laws of war either. They're trying to make political points, but they essentially are making a good point. You are obligated to refuse to carry out illegal orders, and blowing boats out of the water without due process is frankly unconstitutional on its face, and it's illegal. It's an illegal act. And the fact that someone like Pete Hegseth is glorifying it, is putting out children's cartoons with them blowing up people on boats, is really beneath the dignity of the office. And we've had some people in that office that are pretty undignified, right? Yeah. We've had Austin, we've had Rumsfeld, we had Cheney, we've had some undignified people, but they look like great statesmen compared to the person who's currently occupying that position.
You know, dead men tell no tales, right? It's the Pirates of the Caribbean, you know. And so when I see the manufacturing of consent for war, because, you know, people in the chat will be like, oh, don't be a snowflake. These are narco-terrorists. Okay, prove it, number one. Show me the evidence. Show me that they're any kind of a threat to the United States at all. Show me that we want to send men and women of the United States military to die for this propaganda. But they're of no threat to the United States at all, as Senator Rand Paul has pointed out. But the point seems to be, the manufacturing of consent for war seems to be that if none of these people can tell a tale, they're all killed, then our manufacturing consent for war works, right? We can say they're heading for Miami right now with all of this fentanyl. It's going to kill 25,000 Americans. But if none of them are alive, then we don't know, right? It's the same, you know, it's like these guys, it's like Thomas Crooks. Like Thomas Matthew Crooks, right? These people, oh, sorry, they're not alive anymore. We get to tell about it. So we'll just tell you at the Pentagon what the truth is, right?
Well, the U.S. has lost its proxy war with Russia and Ukraine. That's very, very clear now. And so what they're doing is they're careful not to take on another peer enemy, a peer adversary. And clearly some guys in a boat, whether or not they have drugs in the boat, are not peer adversaries. So they can take a big W in the ledger sheet. They can compare it to Panama whatsoever and put in a quick win. But, you know, I spent a lot of time around neocons in D.C., trust me, and I know how they operate. And they've got President Trump's ear. They've backed him in a corner, as they always do. They did it very easily to Bush, to George W. Bush after 9/11. Mr. President, this is going to be a cakewalk. It'll be an easy thing to do. Don't worry about it. The war will pay for itself. They are relentless. They never back down. And that's why it's so disturbing that Trump has so many neocons, including people like Marco Rubio, whose entire life's purpose is to overthrow the governments of Venezuela and Cuba. That's his life purpose. And you can imagine the constant haranguing of President Trump and now he's backed into a corner. What's he going to do? I mean, I'm not a military person, but you can only leave the troops and the equipment out there for so long because they're at up tempo. They can't sustain that for this long before you have to do something. And that's when they've got him. Mr. President, you're going to look weak if you don't do something. You can't just put your tail between your legs and go home, and we'll be defeated by Venezuela. Think about the midterm elections. Think about what the Democrats will do. It's a disaster of their own making.
You know, you've warned for years about emergency powers or temporary emergency powers, something you and Congressman Ron Paul, Dr. Ron Paul, have talked about a lot because they always seem to become permanent. Do you see this like new maritime policy as another example of like the militarization of law enforcement under the like a banner of national security? We've got new maritime laws that give the president these extrajudicial killing powers.
Well, and Pam Bondi said she's putting in the National Guard in every city in America. So, yes, it definitely is expanding the militarization of our police everywhere. And of course, future administrations will love having this power. They'll love the fact that, you know, they loved it after the Patriot Act. President Obama loved the Patriot Act. He loved using it against American citizens. And the same thing will happen with this. But, you know, the thing, Clayton, is that the same people who rightly complained about the floods of refugees, and we've seen what happened now with the shooting, tragic shooting over the weekend, this fellow who was trained to kill by the CIA, who was trained to be a ruthless killer. Well, because he helped us, we let him in. And what did he do? He practiced his trade as a ruthless killer. You think that we're not training ruthless killers in Venezuela as we speak to perform the same tasks? If you don't want a flood of people, some of whom may be ruthless killers, then the answer is to stop engaging in this neocon regime change wars because it only produces rotten fruits.
Well, we know the CIA has been active, to your point, very active in Venezuela, confirmed multiple times, and we've confirmed it separately here on the show. And so they've been in there, of course, running drugs. The only drugs that are really coming out of Venezuela are being run by the CIA. And the people, these narco terrorists, the reason we pretend to know that there's narco terrorists there is because we trained them, for crying out loud. It's hilarious how this works, isn't it?
And the idea that this is a war against narco-terrorism, and many of us who are appalled by what's happening in our inner cities with drug use, it's been completely undercut by President Trump himself with the pardon of one Orlando Hernandez, who brought in, 400 tons of cocaine flooding the streets of the United States, and President Trump has just pardoned him. And, you know, one of the other things about this, Clayton, is that this is not simply about the war on drugs. A lot of it has to do with the so-called Isaac Accords. And that is all of Latin America getting on board to support Israel first. And that was started, of course, by Milei in Argentina, who said he's moving his capital of course, to Jerusalem. Machado, the Nobel Peace Prize winning person waiting in the wings in Venezuela, has also said the exact same thing. And the same is true in Chile, I believe, and probably now in Honduras, that the election appears to have been rigged in favor of Trump's candidates. Something else is going on besides the war against drugs, and it's about lining up the governments of Latin America to be proxies of Israel in the region.
Right. And now you have Russia and China saying they're kind of stepping back. So I think you're right about that. The CIA's deep involvement here. People in the chat room are like, of course. I knew it was the CIA. Of course it's the CIA and the meddling here. I really think we are, a country sadly in massive decline. You know, I'd love to think about liberty in this country, but I really think, what does Dr. Ron Paul think about the state of liberty? I mean, your whole show is called the Liberty Report. Where is it? Is it a gone cause now in the United States?
I don't think it's gone, but it's suffering some blows. You know, people would like to, trade a little bit of their liberty for security. And the fact is you're left with neither if that happens. And what Dr. Paul actually said on the show today is this is a case of blowback. You're training people, the CIA is training people in these countries. You get blowback. They are over here. This is what he said about a 9/11 because we were over there. And we haven't learned these lessons. We can't keep going over there and fomenting this kind of chaos and not expect it to come back to our shores.
Here's some ripping in the background, Daniel, because maybe, Philip, you can take the slider cam shot here if you would, because We just got this for the studio. It's about to go up on our walls. Any society that will give up a little liberty to gain a little security will deserve neither and lose both. Benjamin Franklin.
Awesome.
Well, and it's also shocking to me how many people are buying into the. We've had the same narrative. How many times do we have to be lied into a war before people see the pattern? Like, how can, like, I just don't understand how that's like this. No, this is different. This is different. No, it's not.
Well, yeah, I mean, because most of these people like watch Fox News, and they're just part of this manufacturing. You know, we saw it with the Iran hit, right? The 12-day war with Iran. Like Sean Hannity out there saying this is the greatest moment for America. You know, we just destroyed their entire nuclear arsenal. No, you didn't. You're lying. But you're going right back to your Iraq War playbook right on national television. So these people tune in to CNN or Fox News. And that's why, you know, and they suppress our show and independent media, because unless you're, you know, if you're not a cheerleader, you won't be amplified. You'll be suppressed. That's at the heart of it, right, Daniel?
Well, these programs are completely corrupted by generals who are on the take, who are getting paid to go up there and talk up these wars. They're representing the military-industrial complex. Thank God for shows like The Redacted, and it's wonderful to see it grow because people are realizing they're being served a shit sandwich and telling it and being told it tastes good, and It doesn't taste good anymore. We want to have a turkey sandwich for a change. Damn it!
Right. When you've got like General Jack Keane on Fox News and like, General, we want to go to you. Like, what's the latest happening here with Venezuela? You know, of course they're on the they're on the payroll, and they get put airtime when we go to war. I mean, that's part of the process. I mean, it's deeply disturbing and deeply disgusting. But our audience is awake and hopefully aware of this and not falling for this propaganda. And I know your audience is awake as well. You must watch the Liberty Report with Daniel McAdams and Ron Paul. It's a great show. I mean, just you want to cut through the smoke and the bullshit and the shit sandwiches. Tune in to Daniel. Daniel, great to see you as always. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to see you guys.
All right, coming up next, a reporter who spent quite a bit of time in Venezuela is heading back there right now. She was just there last week in eastern Venezuela, filing reports on, like, what do the Venezuelan people think about this imminent invasion by the United States? What do they think about the United States meddling in their country? Like, wouldn't it be interesting to hear their perspective? We're going to hear that perspective next with Camila Escalante, who is a reporter who spent quite a bit of time there and talking with how those locals are preparing for this war. Before we get there, though, let's talk about Lucy breakers. A couple of people have been asking me recently about this. These are 100% pure nicotine, totally tobacco-free. Each pouch has this little capsule inside you can pop in to release some extra flavor and hydration. It's a pretty clever idea if you're someone who already uses nicotine pouches and wants something like with a little more kick to it. They've got flavors like mint, mango, berry, citrus, espresso. I was out the other night watching a football game with my father-in-law, and one of the bartenders popped out a Lucy breaker. I was like, holy smokes. I know about Lucy breakers, and she says she thought they were fantastic. And what I really like about their setup is their subscription options. You can just have Lucy delivered straight to your door, no running out, no last-minute gas station run. Let's level up your nicotine routine with Lucy. Go to lucy.co, that's C-O. So lucy.co/redacted. Use the promo code redacted to get 20% off your first order. Lucy has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. Again, that's lucy.co. Use that code redacted to get 20% off. And here comes the fine print, of course. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age. Every order is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. So our thanks to Lucy for sponsoring our show. Well, what about the Venezuelan perspective? Well, journalist Camila Escalante has been on the ground in Venezuela, covering that country deeply as that country prepares for a U.S. invasion or attack. Here's a bit of her report. She's been meeting with local officials and citizens who are trying to fortify their country from this coming attack. And Camila joins us now to talk about her experience talking to the Venezuelan people, talking to local officials there. And I know you're about to head back to that country very, very shortly. Camila, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for the invite.
So it seems like this is inevitable and it's imminent from all of the reports that we're hearing from the United States side, even U.S. members of Congress seem to be saying that this is imminent. It's about to happen here. What are the Venezuelan people telling you?
Well, on the one hand, there's an ongoing preparation. There are civilian militias that are preparing across the country that are linked to the Chavista formations. That is, the people who are part of the PSUV, the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, which is the largest, most powerful political force in Venezuela, but one of the largest political parties in Latin America in general. And they have base organizations. They have local organizations that have their own leadership structures where they have communes, they have proposed projects and all sorts of things. And so within that, they form their own defense militias in order to complement the National Bolivarian Armed Forces of Venezuela, the military, and of course the police. And so the police are and military and the government are on watch. They're looking at what, U.S. authorities are saying, what sort of movements are happening in the Caribbean, in these different countries that have allowed the United States military to set up base. But regular people have been under siege for so long. This is a country that has been attacked by 1,000 unilateral coercive measures or illegal sanctions that are part of an economic war and a hybrid war against Venezuela. These are people who have lived through economic crisis. They have, that is all linked to the large-scale theft of Venezuelan assets abroad, including Venezuelan gold, including the theft of Citgo. And so this has really affected the country. And we're years and years into the threats against Venezuela and the threats to coup the government. President Maduro has even survived multiple assassination attempts and plots that have been thwarted, mercenary plots, incursions, threats from Venezuela's borders on all sides. So it's getting a little tired, and I think people just want to be with their families and celebrate Christmas. Christmas is a really big deal. It's a Christian country. Most people celebrate a very extended holiday season that starts very early. And the economy has really recovered in recent years. And so they're focused on buying things, preparing for their big foods. They celebrate with hallacas, which is a traditional Christmas food, among other, dinner foods that they have there. And that's what people are doing. So I interviewed a lot of people. Yes, the most militant people who are part of those militias and those neighborhood groups would talk about the threats against their country and how they're against invasion, they're against this ongoing meddling in their country, and they want the United States to leave them alone. But a lot of people are also just not really paying attention to the news anymore because it's so tiring when your country takes the headlines internationally all of the time, and you hear year after year that the opposition is planning something in conjunction with the United States and other foreign powers, and that they're acting as foreign agents in the country in a treasonous, traitorous way to try to overthrow the government. So people are kind of just over it at this point. They're not scrolling through Twitter. They're not chronically online. They're just living their normal lives and going to work.
So do what we hear in the United States and what the corrupt media in the United States tells us is that Venezuela is a narco state and that the flood of fentanyl pouring into the United States is coming from these high-speed fentanyl boats that, thank God, the Secretary of War and President Trump are bombing right now. Like that's the message coming out of the mainstream media in the United States of America, mostly, at least most of the conservative media. But what's the truth? Why is this being perpetrated on the Venezuelan people? Is it because of drugs?
Well, it's simply because the United States needs access to Venezuela's vast oil reserves and other natural resources, and to gain territorial control to be able to control both that area of Latin America, including the waters surrounding Venezuela, and to end Venezuela's influence over other countries, because Venezuela is a country that has chosen its own path, has its own model towards socialism, and it's influencing and empowering through material support other countries to be able to liberate themselves from the domination of imperialist powers, namely the United States. These other countries have been under imperial colonial domination for hundreds of years, even though they've all had their own supposed independence processes, but they still don't have the levels of development necessary to truly liberate themselves from these other countries. And one of the things that they need is energy. They need to be able to become energy sustainable, independent, whatever it is, and they don't have a whole lot of money. And Venezuela has helped them through Petrocaribe, through different initiatives, primarily the countries of the Bolivarian Alliance, ALBA, and has given them subsidized fuel, and this has really helped them. And in other ways, they're cooperating, through medical cooperation that involves Cuba. They help with Conviasa, the state airline, that provides a lot of, necessary aid when things like weather-related disasters happen in these Caribbean countries. Venezuela has reached out to many other countries and, has tried to come together to provide alternatives. And it provides an ideological alternative and an economic alternative, which is this model that they have of the communes, of radically changing their model in order to move towards a more socialistic model, which Cuba and Venezuela have their own models, and other countries are striving for in some way as well. And so the United States sees them as a kingpin, and they want to try to topple this government to install their own U.S.-friendly puppet or ventriloquist dummy or whatever it is in order to sell off Venezuela's resources the way you would from an Avon catalog or a Mary Kay catalog. Maria Corina Machado and the different U.S. lawmakers who are involved in, organizing these plots and allying with these, CIA-backed actors in Venezuela want to simply take Venezuela, parcel it out to the highest bidder, and really just finish with Venezuela as it is. And so this is what it's all about. They want to go after Cuba, they want to go after Venezuela, but they know they have to go for Venezuela first. And Trump seemed to have at one point thought that this was his opportunity to do so, but he's seeing that the optics aren't very good, and that people, including the United States and his own party, are not, or at least supporters or voters of his party, aren't on board.
Well, and you hear that, you hear the MAGA people, like, who, the types I'm talking about, who like lick President Trump's feet wherever he walks. Oh, it's the narco terrorists. Like, that's what we're stopping. It's the Venezuelan child trafficking operation. Newsflash: the United States is one of the largest purveyors of child trafficking in the world. Guatemala, but why Ukraine? Ukraine is a massive child trafficking operation, yet we can pick and choose like who we defend in all of this. It's all garbage. We all know it's about the oil and the Chinese who have helped, of course, to try to actually refine some of this oil, which, is not the best oil in the world when it's pulled out of the ground. It requires quite a bit of refining, and the Chinese have been able to help. So the Chinese sphere of influence in Latin America, the oil, the Chinese, the Russians' sphere of influence there. This is exactly why the Trump administration seems to be moving in this direction. Sorry to just monologue there, but I feel like for anyone still falling for the drug argument, they need to get their heads examined.
Right, because we have reports. We have reports that the United States itself relies on. They have their own DEA reports. They have reports that are put out on different countries by the State Department. We have the UN World Drug Reports and reports by the EU that are all elaborated with the help of the different governments of the region. And Venezuela has not factored in any significant way into any of the main, most credible drug reports, even though we know that these drug reports can be used in a political way, in a politicized way, in order to go after these countries. Really, Venezuela hasn't factored. And the United States knows, and the Trump regime and Marco Rubio themselves know, that the main drug routes for cocaine are on the Pacific Ocean. They have nothing to do with the Caribbean, very little to do, and that Venezuela has actually done a pretty good job at intercepting some of these drug shipments and making sure that their waters are not being used for that, whereas Colombia has had a very challenging time for many decades. And now Ecuador is the main corridor through which drugs move, not just to the United States and Central America, but also southward and around South America to get all the way to Africa, Asia, and Europe. And of course, nobody talks about the demand. The fact is the United States is a country that has very deep social problems. I've lived in many countries of the world. I have worked in many countries of the world. I have never anywhere seen the level of addiction and dependency anywhere that I've been that exists in the United States. And this is a public health crisis, but it's also a different type of societal crisis. Why do so many people in the United States need drugs in order to survive? And why does it wreck families? And why is there such a high prison population in the United States? Why is there so much crime and crime related to drug use and violence and domestic abuse and things like that? It simply doesn't exist on that scale in other countries. There are drugs being produced in South America, namely cocaine in Ecuador, in Bolivia, Peru, and in Colombia. And you don't see people using drugs or certainly not using fentanyl. That's like non-existent in most of Latin America. The way you do in the United States. So there's a serious problem there, and it's going to have to be dealt with by the United States, or in the case of Canada and Europe, by those governments, because the people are sick, but that has nothing to do with these foreign countries. It sets a very dangerous precedent in which you could just say that that someone has like chickenpox or measles, and that Zimbabwe is sending it to people via, like crates of donuts. I mean, right. You can just say anything at this point. You're just pointing the finger at a completely different country, which has nothing to do with fentanyl.
No, we like to point the finger at other people. We never like to take responsibility for our own addictions in the United States. It's like, again, I brought up the child trafficking thing. Whatever Venezuela's child trafficking reputation is, well, guess what? In the United States, there's an incredible demand for children. There's an incredible demand for sex slavery in the United States. Maybe we should tackle that, because you're always going to have suppliers if your demand is off the freaking charts for fentanyl, for sex trafficking, the millions of children that are sold around the United States. Maybe we should look ourselves in the mirror first, close our border and try to fix ourselves before bombing other countries and blaming them for our problems. But that's what we like to do in the United States, apparently. Camilla, thank you. I know you're heading back to Venezuela. Be safe. In the next
2 days.
Yeah, be safe. I mean, and I'm not going to ask you about your travel plans, given the fact that the airlines are shut down and there's no flights. But
there are fewer flights. There have always been issues with flights because of the sanctions imposed, obviously externally by the United States and these other countries on Venezuela, but they're still operating since the Truth Social post made by President Trump. That hasn't changed anything in the last 72 hours. The flights that were scheduled to leave on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday following that post have continued, both domestic and international flights by those major airlines, which are Stellar, Conviasa, Copa, and a number of other flights. Of course, some airlines did in fact get banned, but the rest of them continue as normal. So, this is just a country that's trying to live normally. People just want to be able to access commercial flights, travel, leave, return, and not have any problems, but they're under constant threat.
Well said. Camilla, thank you for your perspective on this and your deep research and journalism that's taken place in Venezuela. Thank you so much. Safe travels back to Venezuela, and we'd love to check in with you over the next few days.
Thanks for having me again.
You bet. Thank you so much. Safe travels. Okay. All right, coming up, we're going to talk about the UK. I don't know if you saw this. UK is planning a massive drone program. It's rolling out an AI drone program that will surveil the British people and study their behavior. So I guess it's not enough that you got cameras everywhere already. Now we need them in the sky monitoring your behavior. Now, we're going to go to the UK in a second. But first, recently I learned about something, only because my wife takes it on a regular basis. I didn't expect to be really talking about this on the show, but it's colostrum. It's the very first milk, sometimes called liquid gold, that babies get from their mothers after birth. It's loaded with proteins, natural growth factors, antimicrobial peptides, The health support, it all helps support your immune system, calm inflammation, help repair and balance your gut lining. All of that means way less of that bloated, weighted down feeling. And that's our sponsor, Cowboy Colostrum, because they make the highest quality bovine colostrum that you can get in the United States. Their colostrum is 100% made in America from American grass-fed cows. And unlike a lot of other brands, Cowboy sources theirs from the very first milking. Don't worry, they only collect the surplus after the baby calves have had everything they need to keep it whole. They don't overprocess it. They don't strip away the good stuff like some brands do. My wife enjoys, she puts it in her coffee every single morning. She puts like a little 3-gram scoop into her coffee. You can put it in a smoothie. You can mix it in with, they've got chocolate, they've got organic cacao, Madagascar vanilla, strawberry, all of it. So you got to check it out. For a limited time, our listeners can get up to 25% off their entire order. Just head to cowboycolostrum.com/redacted news. It's right there on your screen. Or you can just scan that QR code. Get 25% off when you use that code redacted news at cowboycolostrum.com/redacted news. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. So thanks so much for your support. All right. Let's talk about the UK, shall we? The UK continues its very fast descent into a surveillance state, which is devoid of free speech and privacy. Two crazy stories that have unfolded over the past few hours, over the past 24 hours. First, according to reports in GB News, local councils are quietly building drone fleets and training drone pilots to carry out full surveillance ops on its citizens. Part of the plan is to unleash these drones to basically police antisocial behavior. The hell does that mean? Whatever that means, I don't know, because apparently CC television cameras, which are all over the damn area, and street patrols weren't like dystopian enough to know what you're speaking, what you're thinking, what you're doing. Sunderland's got 13 drones ready to spy from the skies already. Most of these locales already do. And many city councils now are pairing them with AI facial recognition. So you're already part of a database, and they're going to be tracking you from the sky. We wanted to bring in Jim Ferguson today from the UK, who is always up on all of this and tries to keep his people sane over there. One of the smartest people and one of the most based individuals in the UK. Jim, great to see you, my friend. Welcome back to the show.
Clayton, always great to be on with you. Thank you for that introduction. And more craziness unfolds in the United Kingdom. And it just goes from one dystopian measure to another, doesn't it?
It seems fake. Like when I see these stories out of the UK, I'm like, this has to be fake. But then I think about it, the United States is doing the very same thing, launching drone surveillance in the United States. This is coming here. So this, in many ways, the UK has become like a cautionary tale, like 6 months ahead of what the United States is now getting under Palantir and all of the stuff that we're seeing in the United States. So what do we know about this drone program specifically? Like, how is it, do we know the mechanics of how it's going to monitor people?
Well, these drones, as we've seen technology increase and much more drone use over the last couple of decades being employed and deployed in places like Ukraine, Afghanistan, Iraq, whatever, it's inevitable that law enforcement and the police are going to start to use it more and more as well. And you made a good point when you mentioned facial recognition, because what they're doing is they're creating AI databases nationally. This is going to be linked into digital ID, the Brit card that they're calling it. The excuse is it's going to deal with mass illegal immigration, which if you believe that, you believe anything. That's nothing to do with that. This is about control. This is the globalist mindset. They want to surveil everybody. And when they say antisocial behavior, it might be their idea of antisocial behavior. I mean, people just going for a walk, minding their own business, taking the dog out for a walk, they will all be targeted. And I think, actually, Clayton, it's because they fear the people. That's really, I think, what it boils down to. They're terrified of the people waking up to what they've really been doing. And this is all part of a control grid, turning it into a prison planet.
That's what it seems like to me. So this antisocial behavior has gotten a lot of headlines because it's literally what they're saying they're going to be looking for. This isn't like made up. Antisocial behavior. So what do they think it like? In Europe, of course, we lived in Portugal for 5 years. One of the moves that the European Union has made is that if you're transacting in cash a certain number of euros beyond whatever 300 euros in Spain, 500 in other countries, that you are considered to be on the gray market, aka a terrorist, because only terrorists would use cash, right? So you're antisocial, like you just don't feel like hanging out with anybody. Like I'm not very, I'm not like a huge people person. And so I guess under these drone, I would be considered like antisocial. Like I just don't want to hang out, I this weekend I just want to keep to myself. So they're going to be watching me. They're going to be putting me in some sort of a database. We've been tracking Clayton's movements. We've been tracking Jim's movements. And you know what? He's just not going out to party every night now. So he's kind of on that gray list. We got to keep an eye out for him.
I can guarantee you we're already on that list, Clayton. But one of the other things they'll be watching, out for is national flags. If you take pride in your country, if you fly the American flag, if you fly the Union flag or your nation's flag, that will be a clear indication that there's something not quite right with you, because that's how they think. They are completely bereft of common sense. But actually, I think it's worse than that. I think they actually hate the British people. Starmer is one of the most deeply unpopular prime ministers in existence, and his Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel from Accounts, Rachel Reeves, is about as unpopular as he is. The two of them are really wrecking the country, and it doesn't surprise me when I hear about this big brother surveillance state that's creeping in, using drones, using facial recognition, mandating that people are going to have to be given digital ID or they won't be allowed to work. They won't be allowed to use public transport. They won't be allowed to fly in airplanes. It is dystopian beyond measure. Orwell would be turning in his grave right now, the author of 1984, if he could see the reality of things in the United Kingdom today. And there are still 12,000 British journalists and people locked up for memes and posts on social media. You can't make it up.
There was something that went viral this past couple of days. It was Glenn Beck interviewing a friend of the show, Whitney Webb. And, he's saying, I'm playing devil's advocate here. Like, look, I'm a good person. I don't do anything wrong. Hey, if you want to I guess you want to go through all my emails, you want to look at everything I do, then, I've got nothing to hide. Right. But she just shut him down because it's not about that at all. It's about not having anything to hide. I think you and I probably would agree with that. It's more about what won't I have access to because you don't like my politics. You don't like how I carry myself. I can't get on a bus. I can't travel because I traveled too much because my Brit card won't allow me to. They've been watching me. They know that, right? It's about freedom. It has nothing to do with I've got nothing to hide.
No. And that used to be what most normal people would say when they were putting up huge amounts of CCTV cameras in the town centres and the shopping markets. People say, well, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to be worried about, have you? And people would rather naively go along with that narrative. By the way, I love Glenn Beck. We followed each other on X for a long time, and Whitney Webb's a superstar. But, they're right, and she's right to say that, because this is a complete invasion of people's privacy, and they are nefarious in what their intent is. They don't like us. They don't like people wanting to live private lives or in freedom or in truth. And this is the dystopian arm of the state that is now exercising greater controls and invasion of people's privacy every single day and week that goes past. And of course, the other thing as well is, Clayton, that the regulatory powers haven't quite caught up with this yet. Now, hopefully they will. Hopefully there will be a change in government. Hopefully that will happen. But until it does, they're going to be rolling this technology out and surveilling everybody just to keep everybody under this sort of overarching grip of the authoritarian state. It's just really, really crazy stuff. But people need to wake up fast, and they need to get this government gone. They are beyond a joke at this point, actually quite dangerous to our freedoms.
Can you maybe talk about some of the mechanics of this? And I want to jump to our second story here, but is running for parliament. Who would be controlling these databases? Because we're talking about these, you can maybe educate our American audience. We have a big UK audience that watches us as well, but there's a lot of us in America that maybe don't understand how the government apparatus would work here. So who would be in charge of, because I think in the United States, we think, it'd be the NSA. They have a history of spying on us. So it's in one database. Is this local areas? Because I would think, well, maybe it's this, certain states would have access to it, but in the United States, it's probably like a federal a federal program, some sort of a federal database that's monitoring? Would you have these like lackeys sitting there smoking cigarettes, like looking, like just sitting there all night, like studying this stuff? Like, what's going on here? How would this work?
I don't think they would be as cool as that, Clayton. I think they'd probably be quite nerdy, eating donuts or something. No, the way it works is we've got MI5, which is our internal security mechanisms and agents that are involved in counterterrorism, and they do serious organized crime and things like that as well. We've also got the specialist policing units and the intelligence services that work with them. On the foreign side, we've got the SIS, the Secret Intelligence Services, or more commonly known as MI6, and they're very, very good at what they do. The agents, the people involved with that, aren't actually the problem. But some of the policing in the London Metropolitan Police, for example, they're really dystopian, and what they're doing to British people right now is shocking beyond measure. And I know that there's another story coming up, so I won't say too much about that. But there will be databases and people running those databases, collecting that information, but a lot of it will actually be controlled by artificial intelligence. And there is a major grid going up, right? So it's not going to be just operators sitting there. I mean, we would like to think it's human beings that's doing it, but actually it's going to be artificial intelligence. It's going to be playing a much, much greater role. And there will be databases of people who have gone to protests, who have maybe shown their faces, carried flags, patriotic flags on marches. They will all have been surveilled already. That's what I'm saying. Any of us who have gone to marches in this country or in other countries, we will be on a database. So we will already be marked. So those drones that are going to be flying overhead, for example, at the next Unite the Kingdom rally in London, they will be able to zone in, home in, and they will know exactly who's there and where they're from, where they live, and everything about them, especially if it gets linked into digital ID, because everything that your bank accounts, your health records, your home address, your date of birth, who your families are, who you're married to, who your sons, your daughters, all of that information is going to be linked into that. The big worry for a lot of people is, what if it gets hacked? We've seen so many cyber attacks on big business and banks. Who's to say that might not happen then as well? So I think people are rightly worried about it. But two out of every three British people are very, very, very much against digital ID in the Brit card. It's really a bit of a flop for the government, but they are still trying to push it out.
Well, I mean, if you know you're going to go to one of these rallies and you're going to be under this surveillance, that would create antisocial behavior. Like, I wouldn't go to those rallies. You know, I don't want to be surveilled like this. Somebody in our chat room, G. Fontes, in our Rumble chat says, Oracle, Amazon Web Services, Israel have some security firms run by former Mossad and British MI6 personnel. So, yeah, it's like the big tech databases that are going to have access to this as well, not just the government or the government in collusion with them, of course, and we'll all be tracked. Too bad we don't have guns, though, in the UK. They can shoot these things out of the sky because this guy. Here's a guy, I want to get your take on this, Jim, which is this British IT consultant who was arrested. Now, bear in mind, here's a photo that you're seeing. He was in the United States, in Florida, at like a gun range, from what I understand, and posted pictures on LinkedIn shooting guns. Well, he comes back to the UK and then gets harassed beyond belief. I think he was arrested, I don't know how many times. Police kept showing up at his house because of his social media posts because he was in the United States showing guns. What the hell happened here?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what happened. But first of all, it's very important to know that this gentleman actually legally owns a shotgun certificate here in the United Kingdom. It's not illegal to have firearms or shotguns in the United Kingdom. They're two different classifications. So you have a firearms license for bullets and you have a shotgun certificate for shotguns. They're two different things. But he had a shotgun certificate legally held and properly stored in the United Kingdom. So you can go shooting clay pigeons or grouse or anything else quite legally if you've got a shotgun certificate or you're on somebody's land under supervision and they've got a license to operate it. But what he did was he went to Florida and he went out to get some target practice shooting clay pigeons, which are just circular discs that shatter upon impact. I mean, it's not as if he's shooting animals. But he put this on his LinkedIn profile to say, hey, look what I've been doing, as a lot of people do. And the police came round. When he came back, he was actually arrested and charged with a range of different offences, causing fear and alarm and all sorts of crazy stuff.
What?
And his life was turned upside down. Yeah, his life was turned upside down for months. Eventually, just before the court case, they dropped all the charges. Did they apologize? Of course they didn't. They just, wrecked a guy's life who did nothing wrong. He didn't break the law, and they didn't even apologize for it. So this is about policing social media posts, not about locking up criminals. I mean, there's obviously police officers who do nothing else other than sit and watch other people's social media posts, rather than going out and tackling the horrendous crimes and the rapes and the attacks on women and children that are happening extensively across the United Kingdom right now. No, they sit and watch people's social media posts and then go and harass them and arrest them and charge them. And then at the end of it, drop all charges and don't even apologize. It's beyond a joke.
And I saw that they dropped all charges. Maybe I'm incorrect on this part of the story. They dropped all charges, but then they kept coming back and harassing him. The police, I think 2 more times, The police came back and harassed him again after dropping the charges. Like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, if that wasn't bad enough, they just kept on coming back and giving him a hard time about it. And I think whether it offends somebody, whether somebody doesn't like firearms or guns or people posting about it, but get a life. Go and watch somebody else's social media. I mean, leave the guy alone. He did nothing wrong. He did nothing illegal. He didn't threaten anybody. He didn't point it at anybody. He was shooting clay pigeons, which is perfectly legal in the United Kingdom and perfectly legal in the state of Florida in the United States of America as well. But this is just another example of the police abusing their powers. It's two-tier justice. It's just a crazy time to be alive in the United Kingdom right now. And that's why we've got to change the government. And I will say, Clayton, I wasn't going to say it because I don't think I'd had a chance to tell you, but I have become politically active again.
Yes. How so? You're running?
Well, a good friend of mine, I'll tell you very briefly, a good friend of mine, Ben Habib, has started a party. He started it about 4 months ago called Advance UK. He's a former member of the European Parliament, a London businessman, and he loves Britain. And I worked with him in the Brexit Party when I was a parliamentary candidate there. And I'd arranged to go down and meet him. I'd kept in contact with him over the last 4 or 5 years. And the day that I was going to see him, the day before, he launched the party. And it's incredible. He's achieved something quite remarkable. Reform UK, my old colleague Nigel Farage, he started a party called Reform UK. It took 5 years to get 30,000 members. Well, it's taken Advance UK 2.5 months to get nearly 40,000. It's quite remarkable.
Wow.
And yeah, it's on rockets. It's like on rockets right now, Clayton. It's quite exciting. And when I was in Warsaw there a couple of months ago, I got a call from him and from his chief of staff. And they said, you're doing all this work across Europe. You're all over the place. Would you come back and see us? We want to talk to you. And they've asked me to take on the role of international ambassador. So I'm the international ambassador for Advance UK. I don't know whether I'll stand at the election, but I'm certainly speaking at a lot of events. We're encouraging people to join us. And get this, Clayton, Elon Musk has officially endorsed Advance UK for the British government to get into power. So there you go.
Way to go. Well, that's great news. Maybe there is some hope. Maybe there is some hope for the island after all. I sure hope so, because it needs it, sorely needs it. That's why it's skyrocketing right now. People have just had enough. I mean, it's beyond the pale. Jim Ferguson, that's great news. Thank you so much. I know it's after 10 p.m. there in London. So thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And thanks for always speaking truth to power. We appreciate it, Jim. Good luck. Let us know what we can do, by the way. We'll try to spread the word here across the pond.
We really appreciate it. Love the guys. Love our American friends. Thanks a lot, Clayton. I'd absolute delight to be on with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Great to see you as always. And good luck. Well, that's great news. That's great news. How many people are watching right now from the UK? We got a lot of people here in the UK.
I just can't wrap my head around the like butthurt police that are like, whose job is it? Like, how do you get this job of like, you just go look for things that could possibly be offensive on people's social media posts? Like, I can understand, like, you know, like filtering for, you know, if people are making threats against people's lives, like, you know, that this person could be dangerous, but there's nothing threatening, you know. It's like
no.
Like, I'm sorry, but this dude, I don't care if he's got the gun in his hand. I just don't feel threatened by him. Like, he's probably a really nice guy, but it's like he does not. That does not strike me as somebody that's going out and trying to wreak havoc and kill people.
He's on vacation.
It's like
he
a
wants
sportsman.
to do he's a sportsman. He's on vacation. He wants to do some shooting in Florida. You know, it's
maybe PETA thought that clay pigeon was just a species, like a, you know, like.
Yeah, I mean, look, and that's the other point. Jim brought up a great point, which is you have a license. I mean, you know, when I lived in Portugal, like there was one time I was walking the dog. I was like come around like this little forested area, and all of a sudden, like these two guys jump out of the bush and shoot some pheasants. You know, I was like, holy smokes, they had shotguns. I was like, you know, you can have, if you register, you can have shotguns. You can go sport hunting, and so to make this like ruin this guy's life. Arrest him and then drop all charges, but then continue to harass him. Like, what are you getting from that?
I want to know how much of the taxpayers' money went into that entire process, from hiring the person to find the social media posts, because you've got prosecutors involved. I mean, obviously a magistrate or somebody was involved, you know, like it had to go before a judge to get thrown down or you know, so it's like, you think of all of the resources that went into what? Like, maybe we can get somebody on the show from like a government agency like this that can explain what good they think this is doing. That's what I would want to know, who came up with these charges and was like, this is doing us some good. Yeah, I want to know what they thought.
Can you imagine? Probably some blue-haired liberals sitting in an office somewhere who think, you know, we're going to go through people's social media profiles, and if they've got a national flag, if they've got the Union Jack, or they have a gun, like, we need to keep an eye on these people. Like, we need to put division resources and money into watching these people. I mean, it's the same thing in the United States under the Biden administration, right? The targeting of conservatives, that people who go to church were a problem. Like Catholics.
Well, it's also starting with the Trump administration with people, you know, talking about Palestine. I mean, they're talking about doing the same thing. So I don't. It's not a side at this point.
No, it's control, right? It's not Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal. It's about control. So it's about how do we control these people, and that's why the uniparty is the major problem here, and that's why 100 million Americans don't vote, because they don't trust either of these parties. Because they know.
And I just kind of see like the deeper conspiracy of like the randomness, the confusion is the point. You know, it's like, is the point of the control. Because then, like, if you know, like if the guy was pointing guns at people and taking pictures and laughing, then you could point to that and say, like, dude, come on. That's clearly not an okay thing to be doing. But like, if you don't know when you're, you know, it's like parents that they don't have rules, but so it's like you as a kid, you don't really know. Because I mean, we kind of grew up this way. It's like you never really knew what rule you were breaking. There would just suddenly be a punishment for a rule that was just invented, and that's what they're doing. They're like, we just now invented this rule. We don't like what you did. Here's your punishment. Right. So it's like they want people to be running around not knowing what it is they can and can't do.
They keep moving the bar. They keep changing, and so now you can't post about. You can't say things about your government. You can't say things about Israel. You can't say things about illegal immigration in your country. Otherwise, you'll have the British police showing up at your door.
I don't know if you saw the Trigonomics, I think it's called Trigonomics or something like that, the podcast where they had a guy on from the UK government, and he was just saying, like, you know, we have to protect if people feel offended, you know, like when you say things like, if somebody feels offended by something, you have to go to the lowest, you know, the common denominator, like the people that are offended the easiest, and start there. So it's like, just think how out of control that can be, because some people get offended by, you know, something that wouldn't offend you might offend somebody else. So you have to go to the weakest person and start there and work your way up.
We can't offend anybody anymore.
Right. Yeah. We all need to just take the over the weekend, just read Fahrenheit 451 and really take the time to understand what they mean in that. And because that's exactly the like what they're getting at is when you try so hard to offend nobody, everything is just boring.
Yeah. I mean, that's like Ricky Gervais right now. He's been doing all these ads for his his gin company or his vodka company. I don't even know what it is, or whiskey company, or I don't know. And he has the Subway ads that say, you know, drink this whatever. Don't forget your stab vest. You know, like you're on the London Underground tubes. You know, where people get stabbed. It's like, you know, anyway. But no, you can't. That's too sensitive. Too soon. You can't do that. You can't do that because you might offend. It's probably that you'll offend the stabbers. You're going to offend the illegal who stabbed people. We don't want to offend those people. We don't want to offend those people.
Yeah, it's like those laws where if somebody breaks into your house, like some of these blue states, if somebody breaks into your home and you shoot them or whatever, they can sue you. Like,
right,
you can get in trouble for protecting yourself.
Yeah, you better know your laws in your state. Like, and it's so convoluted. Like, even in the city of Denver versus, I mean, other areas like the state of Colorado versus the city of Denver. Like, you need to know. Like, what's your stand the ground laws? Like, if someone breaks into my house, like if someone comes up and is smashing my front door and I shoot them, like I might be criminally liable because they didn't yet break into my house. Oh, you're just smashing my door. Allow them to break into my house. Then I can shoot them.
Like, and just hope they don't get to your kids first, you know, like.
Right. So just like allow them to break in which case then it's defensive and then you can shoot them. But not in every city. Like, it's unbelievable. Well, yeah, we'll take some super chats here in a second. But first, I don't know if you guys saw silver exploding. Yes, price of silver skyrocketing. Their predictions could hit $80 for an ounce of silver. First of all, there's a silver shortage in the United States. Over the holiday, we were teaching my daughter because she has to learn about the silver boom and the gold mining towns in Colorado and everything. And we were talking about the great silver bust in the late 1800s. And basically, people just didn't want the silver anymore. There's too much of it. I was explaining to my daughter that we don't have enough of it now. There's such an incredible demand for silver that it's exploding in value right now. They need it in everything from solar panels to EVs, you name it. And we don't have enough of it. And so now, as all these government currencies are collapsing, United States dollar is plummeting, you're seeing this incredible surge for precious metals, and the demand is off the charts. Of course, you have these central banks that are buying up gold and silver because they've been around for thousands of years, and they will be when the United States dollar inevitably collapses. So we're big proponents of investing at least a portion of our savings in precious metals. You guys do whatever you want to do, but I believe the US dollar, every day you have a US dollar in a savings account, it's losing value because of inflation. So your dollar that's in that savings account today will be worth less tomorrow. That's just the way that it works. But silver and gold are a way to protect your family's wealth as a hedge against inflation, and they have sustained for thousands of years as governments have collapsed, and every government currency in world history has collapsed. I always say, what makes you think the US dollar won't be? Like, it's going to be the one that doesn't collapse? Okay, sure. $38 trillion in debt, and somehow the United States dollar is not going to see its comeuppance pretty soon. Our friends at Lear Capital can actually help you start investing in precious metals. It's free to give them a phone call. Just get on the phone with these guys. They're an American company. That's who we buy our precious metals through. Now, you can have it shipped right to your house. You can store it in your gun safe if you want to. Silver coins, your gold coins, all of it. Or you can have it stored off-site in a secure facility, which is what we do. And you can go to LearRedacted.com. That's the website. Or just get on the phone with them and call them. 1-800-613-3557 to get your free gold guide. Where is gold going next? Where is silver going next? I mean, it's anybody's guess at this point, but it seems to be going up and up and up as the US dollar continues to go down, down, down. And all of these BRICS countries are moving to basically a precious metals backed currency to take on the reserve currency of the United States dollar. So I hope you're preparing for this because it's coming. Don't wait 2 years and say, oh, I wish I would have known about this. At least get educated about it. Call them, have a discussion with them. They'll send you a free packet that you can read with your spouse over dinner or whatever. Just sit down and talk about it and make some decisions for yourself about how to maybe move some of your savings into precious metals. One of the smartest things you can do. So call them 1-800-613-3557 for your free guide, or go to learredacted.com, and you can qualify for up to $15,000 in free bonus medals with a qualified purchase. Just ask them how to do that on the phone. All right. Roddenrex, thank you for your $2 super chat. Says, why can the U.S. invade but homeless people can't invade Haiti? That's a great question. I don't know that I fully understand it, but it's a good question. Let's see. Oh, Rod Marek says, nobody really cares about the Geneva Convention. I know, it's like, isn't that funny? It's a violation of the Geneva Convention that everyone signed mostly, but no one really pays attention to it, unfortunately. Way too much NFO says, I love the snow, Clayton. Yeah, we got some snow here in the Rocky Mountains. Fatherless homes always love drugs more. Is that true? If you like fatherless homes, they like drugs more. I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, having no father around is never good for a family, of course. From Rods to Radicals says, it's not about the drugs. It's about stopping China, especially from their bridge building at the Darien Gap. Yeah, the Chinese influence in this is a big part of it in Venezuela, sure. Let's see. Poinambo says, my take is Trump is disrupting China-Venezuela relationship, giving its proximity to Panama. Has nothing to do with drugs. Absolutely, it has nothing to do with drugs whatsoever. White and orange people are not the same, Rod Marek says. Thank you for all your super chats. I appreciate that. And thank you for everyone watching today. Really appreciate it. That's going to do it for us today. Is Sasquatch real? You tell me. We got the sign here in case there's Sasquatch crossings happening here. You lived up in the Pacific Northwest. Well, Philip still does, but David did. What do you think? Sasquatch real?
And kept hearing, I was in the dark. My brothers were coming, and I was setting up camp for them to get there, and I kept hearing this whoa sound out in the distance. And I was like, am I about to meet Bigfoot? So I got so scared that I threw all of my stuff in the truck and took off and got out of there. And then I started doing some research to try to find out what that sound was. And turns out it was a nighthawk. It's a bird who goes up, and then when it dives, it has this air hole on it that makes this walk noise. But it sounded like they were like around me, and I literally thought I was going to see Bigfoots. So I was like so freaked out. I never went solo camping again after that.
Maybe it was Mothman.
A bird.
People think it's Mothman. Yeah, the Mothman prophecies.
But like Mitch Hedberg said, I think Bigfoot is just blurry.
Yeah.
Because I think that if it did exist, we would see some clear footage of it by now with all the technology we have. So I'm not convinced.
I don't know. There's it's almost impossible to catch like a puma on camera, right? You know?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. And there's certain tigers in Indonesia or whatever. Like I can't remember what kind of tiger it is, but like it's rarely ever been seen.
Yeah.
So
people are like, well, you'd find a carcass. Well, it's like, how often do you see like bear carcasses, or how often do you see? Almost never. Deer because they get hit all the time, but it's very rare to see these things. But I mean, look at the people that have footprints. Look at the cryptozoologists that find these footprints, and I don't know, but hey, maybe this. And a lot of people think the Patterson Gimlin film is faked. I don't know. But hopefully there's people that have like hair samples and things that they can't explain, like unrecognizable DNA from like hair samples that are like caught on like a fence post and things like that. So who knows? I'm open. That's the thing. I'm open-minded. You're never going to call me closed-minded. So gotta keep it real.
Yeah, no, I'm totally open-minded. My best friend does a podcast about it, and he interviews a bunch of people that have some. There's always the people that have this really off the wall stories, but there are some people that have some stories where I'm just like, like I could believe that. Especially like, where were you up to close to where you were from? In Jersey, the island or whatever. What is that place called? We had talked about it before. There's an area there.
Oh, Montauk.
Montauk, yeah. There's like a bunch of stories that come from Montauk.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Jay Gibbs says, "Of course not. It's not real." And somebody else in the chat just said, G. Fontes says, "Right? Do Bigfoot bury their dead? Who knows? Who knows?" Yeah. Someone around liquor giant says someone around here would have shot him by now. Optimistic realizer says maybe Clayton is part Sasquatch. Maybe.
No,
just from the waist down.
You're not hairy enough.
Just from the waist down.
Are you saying just your feet? Is that what you're saying? Like a hobbit? You're like a hobbit.
I am 6'2". I have been known to scare a few people in the woods. Washington is big on Sasquatch. Yeah, when I was in Portland, in Oregon, at the airport there, they've got like all sorts of Sasquatch stuff at the little stores and stuff like that. For sure. Brendan in our chat room says, absolutely, Sasquatch is real. Yeah. Liquor Giant says, yeah, if you've lived in the woods long enough, you know what every sound is. Miss Electromagnetic says, or MS Electromagnetic says, Sasquatch is real and some live in Colorado. Long Meadow says, Sasquatch is real. Last name is Fetterman. Oh, man.
I'll bet you it's an anti-Semite, too.
Probably.
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can get some of those Israeli drones. Like, if we find out Sasquatch is anti-Semitic, then maybe we can get, like, you know how, like, they go after people. They get, like, the full Mossad, social media army and the bots. Like, maybe we could put, like, Mossad and their drone army, like Palantir, to go find Sasquatch. Like, if we start the movement to say that Sasquatch is anti-Semitic, they'll cancel Sasquatch. They'll do everything. They'll go after him, Maybe you should do that. Sasquatch, Glow Blue Forever says Bigfoot is an interdimensional being.
I've heard that theory as well.
Yeah. So, well, thank you guys for joining us here. Hopefully Natalie will be back tomorrow. Again, we had our 13-year-old daughter got hit on Thanksgiving morning of all mornings with influenza A. And then she hit like on Saturday morning, 105-degree fever. So we had to take her into the hospital on Saturday morning and all that. The urgent care clinic and all that, And so she's still today like 102-degree fever. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. They said like 5 to 7 days of this like fever. So my wife has been tending to her. But Natalie also had like a pretty bad flu as well. So knock on wood, I'm the only one that didn't get sick in our house. My son and my other daughter had it like 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. And then hopefully, but this is what happens. They all get it. And then like a week after everyone else has had it, then I'm like, So anyway, people are like, I know you guys get sick all the time. Yeah, when you got 3 kids and they're in school and they're in sports. And
carrier monkeys.
Yeah.
What's funny is I think I get sick by proxy. Like I feel like I
haven't even
don't
been
even
to our
go over
house
there.
and you get sick.
I know.
Like you're like, I think you just get sympathy sick. But the best part is, this is hilarious. Natalie and I were talking the other day because David's like, Philip, you can attest to this because David's like, yeah, I never get sick. Natalie's like, you're full of shit. She's like, you get sick all the time. What are you talking about?
But I didn't until I was around you guys.
Mm-hmm. Is that
like
true?
I literally like every when I generally get sick is when there's a drastic weather change. But other than that, like I really don't. Like when I first came to Colorado to help set up the first studio, I got sick coming. Then I got sick going back, and I hadn't been sick in a very long time. Like anything beyond like, I'll get some sniffles and, maybe the shits here and there, but nothing like I got when I got back out here.
Let's see. OK State Fan says, when I was a teacher, I got sick every year. I rarely get sick now. So yeah, you've built up. Yeah. ED29H says, I never get sick after having 3 children, Clayton. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I take my multivitamins every day. I take my Kimchi 1. Yeah. No, No, I'm feeling good. I feel good. I feel good. I didn't get a lot of sleep though, but I feel good. So anyway, we'll be back tomorrow. We got work to do. We got a lot of news to cover, and hopefully not, but potentially a war with Venezuela, which seems to be unfolding right now. So, and Ukraine, not likely going to have any kind of a peace deal anytime soon with all the corruption that's happening there. So what will happen in Ukraine? Maybe no country left. That seems to be what's going to happen. We'll be watching all of this. Thank you guys for subscribing. Thanks for being a part of our show. And hopefully our newsletter will be back tomorrow. So if you just go to redacted.inc and sign up for the newsletter, you should be able to get that first thing tomorrow in your inbox. Just go to redacted.inc. So thanks everyone for joining us. And we'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Have a great night, everyone.